Hey geeks. So the last video abruptly ended because my camera turned off. And I don't know if I had bumped the button and turned it off myself or if it just did it on its own, which I don't think it did it on its own because technology is infallible. It always works. So I was about to get into one other item, but then I went and grabbed a few other items too. So might as well load this video up with some more cool stuff. The Silver Age of Comic Book Art. And this book is bigger than my head, and that's saying something. This book is really awesome. I've thumbed through it. It's mostly an art book, not a lot of heavy reading, but they give you a lot of close-ups of artwork by famous comic book artists. Here's some Jack Kirby, Thunderbolt from the Inhumans. Black Bolt, not Thunderbolt, Black Bolt. You may know that he there's a Gorgon and Medusa, also part of the Inhumans. But you might know that he doesn't talk, but when he does open his mouth, he emits power. And so this book, essentially what they did is they went and they took a lot of artwork over the years and did some really good scans of them and then blew them up for this book. So, you know, these panels as printed originally were not this big, clearly. Here you got a Captain America panel where he's fighting, I think, some Hydra agents. Patow! This is more Jack Kirby art. Let's see what else we've got here. We got some Doctor Strange. Back up a little bit because this book is a beast. Steve Ditko, another master of the craft. I loved Steve Ditko's Doctor Strange run. I went and bought the back issues, which, you know, were from the 60s. So when I was a kid collecting in the 80s, I went back and got those issues. I still have them. I don't know how much they're worth, but probably quite a bit. But I loved Ditko's art so much. I especially loved this crazy, like, cosmic multiverse type stuff that he was doing. You know, just like nobody was drawing stuff like this back then, and really not even now. Ditko's style is very unique. I got to show more Ditko on the channel. Let's see. Here's another nice spread. I mean, this book's got these awesome 2-page spreads. This panel probably was no more than maybe 2.5 by 2.5 inches in the original comic book or so. You know, so they really did a good job of kind of blowing up these panels to really give you a sense of the grandeur of the artwork. Here's a big Spider-Man spread. Doing his Spider-Man thing. Let's see. I'm not sure who the artist is on that Spider-Man. It's more Ditko. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Ditko had a really famous run on Spider-Man too. And then he abruptly left Marvel, much to Stan Lee's consternation. But Ditko didn't like the editorial control that Stan Lee was wielding over Ditko. Ditko, probably more than anybody, I think, at that point in time in comics history, wanted to be his own man. And, you know, definitely I get it. But he ended up laboring at Charlton Comics for almost zero pay. But the trade-off was that he had his artistic freedom. But what that meant is he didn't have access to kind of the iconic characters of Marvel and DC. And over the years, he worked for both of them, but he didn't have those long runs, on some of their heroes like he did with Spider-Man and with Doctor Strange. So, yeah, Ditko is an interesting cat. He was really known for his faces, faces of despair and concern. Nobody could draw a face like Ditko. It's just that. And he did a lot of those types of comics, a lot of a lot of weird tales, science fiction-y, horror, suspense, Outer Limits, Twilight Zone-ish type stuff. So he was great at that kind of thing. Let's see who else we have in here. Mystery in Space. Oh, well, let's see. I've got some Adam Strange, Mystery in Space. Got a collage of panels there. The Flash in his classic Flash pose. Yeah, these last two were by Carmine Infantino. I have a love-hate relationship with Carmine Infantino's artwork. He really kind of first got on my radar when he started drawing Star Wars, the comic book, back in the late 70s when the first movie was released. Or am I incorrect there? Actually, he definitely did he did a long run on Star Wars, but it may have come in after the original artist, who I want to say was Shaken. Yeah, was Howard Shaken was the first artist, but Infantino eventually took over the book. Shaken hated working on Star Wars. He wanted to do more what he considered to be adult comics at the time with more mature themes and so forth. But Infantino, that guy was a workhorse. I mean, he did a ton of stuff for DC, did a ton of stuff for Marvel. I want to go back to some more Kirby, because Kirby's always good. Here's a page out of or a double page out of the Fantastic Four, showing off some of Kirby's flair for exotic technology. You can see the Human Torch flying around up there in your upper right. Again, this panel was definitely blown up. I don't even think this was a two-page spread initially. I think this was a single panel on a single page, but they blew it up for this book because that's the thing about comics is so much of the artwork is condensed on the page inside of these panels, but when you zoom in on them, which is what's cool about kind of like scanning your comics and getting them into your computer, and you can zoom in on, you can really study the artwork. Before that, I mean, you had to like take a magnifying glass and study it. Here's a Fantastic Four, an excellent representation of Galactus and Doctor Doom. There's Silver Surfer groveling before Doctor Doom. That was a great issue when Doom tricked the Surfer into making him think that Doom was benevolent, and he tricked him, and he stole his cosmic surfboard, and then he tried to take over the Earth, and the Fantastic Four had to rally to stop Doctor Doom from doing that. Of course, there's just page after page of Kirby art. Of course, you can't help but have to show it off. Here's some Thor and New Gods. So I can see what they're doing here. They're kind of showing similarities between his DC comics and his Marvel comics work. Thor came before the New Gods, and a lot of the themes in New Gods were developed in Thor, but they were refined in the New Gods when he went to DC. Let's see. Gil Kane. Gil Kane did a lot of Green Lantern, a lot of early age Green Lantern. I think Silver Age Green Lantern. I don't know if I don't have a lot of Silver Age Green Lantern. I have a lot of modern age Green Lantern from the 80s. It was a good comic back then. You got, I guess Gil Kane did a lot of work on the Atom. I don't really have any Atom comics that I collected. Just, I might have a mini series here and there, but not one. These are all Silver Age. Let's see here. There's some work that he did on Captain America and Green Lantern. Some similarities in the fighting styles between Green Lantern and Captain America. And you know, clearly I think Kirby influenced in terms of the posing, you know, of the figures. That sort of dynamism that Kirby was known for. You know, these guys were influenced by each other all the time. Who else do we have here? Joe Kubert. Joe Kubert was really big on Hawkman, and he did a lot of war comics. And I wasn't really super into a lot of war comics. Kind of, even now, I'm not so much into them. It's not a genre I collect too much. I have a few. You know, I have The Losers by Jack Kirby, of course. Boy Commandos by Kirby, because it's Kirby. But, you know, he was doing, like, Sergeant Rock was a big DC title. He had done a lot of work on that. Our Army at War, Enemy Ace. I remember Enemy Ace. I never really got into buying those. But that's the type of stuff that he was doing. And let's see. Some of the panel work that he would be known for. Good use of silhouettes. Looked like he used those pretty frequently. I kind of knew Kubert more from like a lot of his sword and sorcery stuff. I think he was doing issues of like Conan and you know, like these fantasy comics, one-off shots that Marvel and DC would do. Yeah, that's mostly what I know him for, was like some of the fantasy sword and sorcery type stuff. Who else we have here? Gene Colan. Gene Colan did a lot of Iron Man. Long run on Iron Man. Then you got Iron Man with Submariner. I want to say that Colan also did a lot of Batman. Let's see, there's some Daredevil in there. But I don't see any Batman. And they don't have much Colan in here. Jim Steranko, who I've met Jim Steranko before at Dragon Con. He's an interesting character. He's still alive and still active, but he was most well known for his work on Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., where he introduced what was the rage at the time was pop art or op art. He introduced that into the comic books, and what that is these circular patterns and strange backgrounds and so forth that you see incorporated into the comics, sort of that type of stuff. See that zebra background right there? You know, it's kind of op art elements that he would incorporate. He also was, take a look at that panel there. Definitely, you know, kind of semi psychedelic, you know, and he was really exploring or experimenting with a lot of narrative and a lot of sequential narrative art in what he was doing. And at the time, this hadn't really been tried before. And then he was experimenting with a lot of creative use of lettering. Working lettering or titles into the structure, like you see here with this building, Who is Scorpio? I believe he was probably the first to do that, as far as I know. So, cool book, The Silver Age of Comic Book Art. I got that at a comic book store. It was like 60% off. And I'd never seen that book before, so it was cool. I finished Volume 3 of The First Kingdom, Volume 3, Vengeance. See my video for Volumes 1 and 2. And this gets like, I mean, it's a deep, deep, visually and thematically dense graphic novel, and it just gets even deeper and denser in volume 3 with the mythology and the lore. But I mean, in a nutshell, there are basically different there are basically different strains of human species in the universe that are super advanced. They're at various levels of super advancement, to the point where some can manipulate matter and others can manipulate time and space. And they're sort of competing for the ability to rebuild civilization on planet Earth by means of their cyborgs, who have become also super intelligent, empathetic, and disobeyed their directives and started kind of implementing plans of their own, but still for the good of humanity. So they're still kind of operating under that one directive. And so this just goes to further a lot of the lore. And so the time that the timeline goes back like eons, basically. It's a lot of the story is still told in flashbacks by various characters. Virtually everybody in this book is immortal, or at least has a lifespan that could last 40, 50, I don't know, 100,000 years and so forth. So the sword and sorcery stuff is still going on Earth. But that's what you get with it, is this combination of sword and sorcery with this high tech. There we go. High tech space battles, basically clashing of humans that have reached godlike technological status and so forth, but are constantly wrestling with the morality of their science and their plans and the outcomes of their plans and so forth. So, there's so much going on in this book. I can't even probably recollect all of it accurately at this point, and this is only volume 3. I've got 3 more volumes to go. But it would be cool if there was a novelization of this book. I don't, Jack Katz, I think, is 93, 94 years old now. He probably doesn't have that in him, but, he could sanction, a writer to write this. Because I actually think that this, I mean, it's a stunning achievement in comics, but I also think it would make a really cool science fiction novel. If you had the right writer involved with it. So, and I don't have a writer who comes to mind, not any that are living, but I think like a Heinlein or a Ray Bradbury would have been, excellent guys to write something like this. But I'm just kind of thumbing through here to see if there's any, here we go. Any good spreads. So, something like this. I mean, it looks like a really busy classical painting. If you were to color it in and apply sort of classical artist brushstroke to it in the coloring, apply some paint to it, it would be along those lines. So, working my way through that. On that note, speaking of deep lore, we got this book from Barnes & Noble, Warhammer, Forges of Mars. So this was hard to find. Like, I couldn't find this book on Amazon, but I found it in Barnes & Noble, just sitting there. And, of course, I immediately looked at the Amazon app to see, because I had a feeling it was kind of a rare book. There are thousands, I think, of these Warhammer novels that have been published, so a lot of them are hard to find. It's not uncommon to find a paperback like this going for like $250 on Amazon, because they were limited run editions. Now this one is not going for $250, but I don't think it was available on Amazon. So some of these are kind of rare. this is cover price $25. I got my 10% discount, plus I had a $5 reward from the Barnes & Noble membership program I'm on, which I highly recommend. It does pay for itself. And if you're not familiar with Warhammer, the lore of the Warhammer universe is very, very expansive and deep. And so if you go to the Lupin channel, Lupin, Lupin, that guy does a fantastic job of explaining the Warhammer universe. Now, I don't play the board game because that's how Warhammer started. It's a RPG board game, similar to Dungeons and Dragons and so forth. But I started getting into the books a couple years ago. And the comics, if I can find them, the comics are kind of scattershot and sort of rare. And I really hope that someone would do a proper run of the comics, not Marvel and not DC, because I don't think they can handle it properly. But maybe someone like IDW or Titan Comics or Image could do it. And now that Henry Cavill's left The Witcher to join Warhammer, the new series, the first series, the first Warhammer that's been put to film, period, anywhere. You can find a lot of fan videos out on YouTube, but they've never made a feature film or a television show until now, the one that's in production. It will be on Amazon Prime Video, and I can't wait for it because with Cavill involved, he is a huge Warhammer nerd. And he's going to make sure, I think, that they stay close to the source material, unlike The Witcher. And so I think, that's his bag, man. Cavill wants to be involved with something where they're going to stay close to the source material. And there's a ton of it. I mean, this book here ain't no walk in the park, okay? This is kind of an omnibus anyway. I think there's actually 3 novels combined in it. I'm going to turn this light on here so I can see. So this one covers this. I've been looking for this because I'm interested in the beings that inhabit the planet Mars in the Warhammer universe. They are known as I believe the Adeptus Mechanicus. They're basically techno mages or techno priests. So their magic is intertwined with technology and so forth. And let's see what we've got here on the back cover. It says, The Martian Mechanicus' thirst for knowledge is insatiable, and when Archmagos Alexol Kotov learns of an ancient expedition that went in search of the very source of life in the universe itself, he immediately assembles a powerful explorator fleet to follow in its footsteps. Not only does Kotov have the powerful engines and warriors of the Adeptus Mechanicus to call upon, even the troops of the Imperial Guard and the vaunted Space Marines joined his crusade. So you got some serious players. If you know anything about the Space Marines, those guys are badasses. I got a feeling that the show is probably going to focus a lot on the Space Marines. The way is treacherous, however, and fraught with perils. Well, it wouldn't be interesting if it wasn't. There are marvels and wonders at the edge of known space, discoveries beyond price. But there are those who believe the secrets of the universe should stay hidden, and beings there who pose a danger not only to the fleet, but to the Imperium itself. So the Imperium is basically the empire of man, but they've got to compete in this universe, in this galaxy, with a lot of other radically violent and territorial species, many of whom wield magic that they draw on from other dimensions, and many of whom are essentially elder gods. Warhammer is unique, I think, there's other properties like Warhammer, but I think Warhammer is the best. It's probably known as grimdark, I think, is what the genre is known of. But if you take elements of like Lovecraft and military science fiction like Battlestar Galactica and Greek and Norse mythology and Lord of the Rings, and you kind of mix it all up, that's what Warhammer is. So it's just, it's incredible. And so, you can really get lost in reading these books. So far I've read probably 8 or 9, but I like to get these omnibuses that have like 3 books in one. So that way, I can just stick to one book for, a month or so and knock it out and get a really good feel for that particular little niche of the Warhammer universe, that they're writing about. So, yeah, I'm really, really psyched about that TV show, and I can't wait for it to come onto Amazon. And I'm continuing to keep my eye out for any Warhammer comics that are kind of out there. I know there were some independent publishers that were publishing, little mini series on and off here and there, but nobody, I think, that had a really long run that went for a couple of years or anything like that. So nothing that I could find like in a big omnibus book. So that's it. One quick note. So I've been working on watching all of the DC animated universe this year, and I have made my way through Batman the animated series, Superman the animated series, Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, and I'm working through Batman Beyond now. I'm on season 2 of 3 seasons. Now, that pretty much encompasses it. There is a show called Static Shock that I never heard of. It was on the WB. It was kind of a spin-off from Batman Beyond. I don't think I'm going to include that. No one's even really heard of that character. I don't say no one's ever heard of it, but it's, it's not a main character in the DC canon. So, and I've literally have spent, most of this year watching nothing but DC animated. I mean, look, man, Batman's got something like 100 episodes alone. Superman close to it. The 2 seasons of Justice League are somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think, 60 episodes. These are all 30 minutes a pop. Batman Beyond has got 20, 40, about 50 episodes plus a movie. And so, I'm coming to the end of that run, and I've got some thoughts about all of it. Mostly, I can see why certainly the Batman show was so revered by fans. I don't know if I'd go so far as to call it the definitive version of Batman like a lot of people do, but it is very good. And so I'm going to make a video on that at some point and collate all my notes about it that I've been keeping in my head these past few months. I turned off, all this stuff's available on HBO Max, or Max as they now call it. I turned off Max because I got tired of paying for it. So I still have a season and a half of Batman Beyond, but luckily I have Batman Beyond on Blu-ray. And so I can watch the rest of it on the Blu-ray. So that's why I was like, well, I'm coming to the end of this project. I think I'm going to turn off Max for a little while and just finish up Batman Beyond watching the Blu-ray discs that I have. It also came with a really cool Funko Pop, so we'll get that on video next time. When I make a video about this particular project. But yeah, it's I'll tally up the number of episodes I've seen, and probably the time spent on it. But it took the place, of a lot of other stuff. I hadn't seen a lot of other stuff this year because I've been just so focused on watching and finishing, these episodes and finishing this project. So that's it for now. I hope you all do what you need to do, which is to stay geek. And I'll see you on the next one.